to the Lord. Talk to the Lord. Help me to comprehend your word today, Lord Jesus. Help me to comprehend your word today, Lord Jesus. The Lord my God is a miracle God. He reigns.
The word royal priesthood is the joining together of two dimensions that were never yoked together. You were either a king or you were a priest. Prophet Samuel ordained Saul to be king. So Samuel could not be king because there could be no diversification of office. The highest rank in government is the king. The highest rank in the spirit is the priest. So every time you hear a man say, I'm a royal priesthood, he's saying there's now a possibility that a man can attain the highest governmental rank and the highest spiritual rank. So a president of a nation can be the priest of that nation. As a matter of fact, in God's original governmental systems, the priest was supposed to be the king of the nation. It is when Israel began to place a demand on God in 1 Samuel, they said, we want to have a king like other nations. God wanted to be their king, then rule that nation through the priestly order. When talking about men who got into God, we must talk about the man called David. David was a dimension of God. I will show you how very soon. So there was a prophecy, you shall be a kingdom of priests. In other words, it is God's desire that we all constitute a priestly nation, which means he does not just want the Levitical bloodline to constitute priests, but he wants to change the order that every of these 12 tribes should be able to provide priestly blood. So what happened is this: in the Old Testament, God had to introduce the systems of tribes. Why? There are things that exist in the spirit and then they need a physical interpretation. So Jacob became the type of the template of the structure of God's government. In heaven there are 12 gates and 12 foundations. They existed and the names were written before the men who were supposed to be actors played their role, which means before Peter was even created, Peter was already a foundation in a realm. In God's possibilities, he does not operate in the past. God's tomorrow is now. When God says I will bless you, he's trying to make you understand, because he means he has blessed you. Whatever God begins to utter in the flesh is what he has finished in the spirit. So before God say I will make you great, he has made you great. So you are great in a dimension, in a spiritual dimension. Now, but it takes certain rituals and certain spiritual protocols to activate in this realm, because the physical realm is slow to manifest the things that have been executed in the spirit. Jesus died in Revelation. Revelation came after Matthew, yet he was crucified in Matthew. But in Revelation, they were using his blood, because Revelation is a triangle of knowledge of the past, the present, and the future. So every time Apostle John is speaking, he is speaking within the template of 3 dimensions, either the past, the today, or the tomorrow. So some things he saw were not things that are to come, but things that has passed. Sometimes the voice of God to you is not a revelation of the future. He's speaking about the past. God has a government in the spirit. God has constitutions and policies. God has a kingdom, and in that kingdom, men are actors and play major role in kingdom manifestation. So what did God do? God already knew who shall be a pillar and who shall be a foundation. That before Judas even betrayed him, it was spoken about him in the book of Psalms that a disciple is going to betray Jesus. So before Judas is born, in the realm of the spirit, there was a conclusion of his eternity in mentorship. I'm saying that before you came to this church, you were already in this church in a dimension, and your future in this ministry already exists. So to know where you are going to enter into a dimension where there's no past or future, but just a today, enter into an ever-present dimension and you will see your future. There are truths that are not spoken to your ear. They have direct access to your spirit. They make no sense to your brain, because at the level you are, you cannot comprehend them, but God must make you know them. So look at that. It says, as I may so say, Levi also, who receives tithe, paid tithe in Abraham. So who is Levi? Levi or what we call the Leviticals, are the people who were legitimately accepted to provide priests in the Old Testament. Abraham meets somebody called Melchizedek, and the Bible says in the book of Genesis 14, it says he was a king called the king of Salem, and we find that Salem was not a country. Salem was a spiritual constitution. It was a spiritual government that has the capacity to influence any territory. So he was a king of a city that was not built by the hands of men. No wonder in the book of Hebrews 11 it says Abraham was looking for a city whose builder is God. That city was built by the king of Salem. So when Abraham saw the king of Salem, he introduced to him penal codes and policies and systems of a nation that is to come. He strengthened the faith of Father Abraham. Is the progenitor of faith. Bible calls him the father of faith. But now, how can you be the father of faith where in John 3 verse 16 Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gives only begotten son, whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So Jesus is the only one who can give men access to the Christian faith. How can Abraham now be the father of something whose creator is supposed to come hundreds of years after Abraham? Now there must be the mystery of time manipulation. So God calls a man who lives in an eternal reality called Melchizedek. Who is Melchizedek? He is the priest of the Most High God. The word priest of the Most High God means the priest, the Most High God. So Melchizedek was the priesthood of God in God's dimension. So God is also a high priest. When this man came to Abraham, one of the mysteries that gives men an initiation and an access ticket into the mysteries of God is the mystery of the bread and the wine. So Melchizedek does it. He gave Abraham bread and wine. When that happened, Bible could not give us an exact understanding of the transaction that happened by this mystery. My father said, and I quote, he said, the Bible is a closed book. You can open the Bible, but it is closed. It is only open to men who have been given keys in the spirit. So there are things. What did Abraham discuss with Melchizedek? It was not recorded. It is in a sacred book in the spirit that only certain men who understand the rituals of priesthood will be able to read the templates in that book. The day God created you, he created you in a family. How did we sin in Adam? Through one man. All of us are called sinners. A child is born and is not innocent. When Adam was sinning, you were in him. All of us sinned in Adam. It was a combined effort. Don't blame Adam, you were there. It says, for Levi paid tithe in Abraham. Now, if they paid tithe in Abraham, in other words, because they existed in a time zone, what we call an aeon. An aeon means an age. Okay? And God speaks within the boundaries of ages. So if God says, I will do this thing, he will do it within an age. Are we together? So what happened is this. Levi is supposed to be the priestly bloodline under Aaronic priesthood, and he exists in hundreds of years to come. But you can only receive tithe if you pay tithe. So how will he pay tithe when he is not born? So when Melchizedek came, Abraham paid tithe. When he was paying tithe, Isaac was in him, Jacob was in him, and all of Jacob's sons were in him, paying tithe together. Now the very fact that Levi paid tithe in Abraham is a sign that Levi was saying that the man we are paying tithe to is our boss, because in Hebrews 7 verse 7, without contradiction, the lesser is blessed of the greater. So they were acknowledging that even though we shall be the bloodline of priests, this is the one who shall be the legitimate priesthood family. He is called Melchizedek, and the believers must come to the place where they understand their authority as priests, because until you live in that faculty, you will always be disadvantageous in life. You will always be the believer that is suffering and is stranded because you have not entered into a place. There is a place where men are transformed. There is a place where men are changed. It is called in priesthood. There was only one high priest in every generation. One high priest. And the role of the high priest, only the high priest entered the most holy place. He had a garment. He had 8 garments. 4 of them could be worn by normal priests, but 4 were exclusive to the high priest. 4 garments. So the high priest had 8 garments with different colors. All of these colors signified possibilities. And then on these garments, there was an attachment that could be detached. It was called the ephod. Now the ephod was was a mystery in the spirit. Number one, it was on the breastplate of gold on the chest of the high priest. The normal priest did not wear the ephod because it was not for them, because only the high priest had the right to stand before God on the behalf of the whole nation. I'm saying this to say that one man stood on the behalf of a whole country. That's why God could not leave that rank in a man's hand. He had to become the high priest himself. So we had the high priest and we had the priest. If you look at the book of Daniel 10, as much as there are godly priests, there are satanic priests. And as much as there are godly high priests, there are satanic high priests. Because the organigram of satanic kingdom is similar to that of God's kingdom. Satan is a copy of God. Everything he's doing is copying God. Somebody goes to a shrine and they say, take off your shoe. He learned it from Moses. When God said, take off the sandals before you come into this place. They learn these things from the things of the spirit. Satan has once lived with God, and when he stayed with God, he understood the systems of God. He understood, he was orientated with the matters of eternity. Elohim sat Lucifer down and began to educate him on eternal matters. Listen to me. God spoke to me again yesterday. He says, why will Lucifer fight God? What does he know? What does he know that will make him attempt the throne of God? Listen to me. If a child that is 2 years old tells John Cena, I will beat you, that child knows something. Sometimes it's not just boldness. What does this person know? What gave him the confidence that he can defeat God? He knows secrets that the believers have not been given access to. If it's by stamina of truth and revelation, then none of us can defeat the devil, because his name means the bearer of light.